Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 103. And what are today's topics?
Slovakia's Prime Minister shot, Iranian President dies in plane crash, how to get progressives to vote for Biden, American primary elections need reform, base Biden tariffs Chinese vehicle, Hakim's dog ship Molotov Ribbentrop video, Arena Football League's revival is a disaster, Russia invades Kharkiv, and Nick Fuentes watching gay porn.
We got overloaded, we could not decide what to get rid of. And there are more stuff here without videos than there are, so we decided to get rid of them first. So, let's go through the ones that don't have video, starting off with...
So we start with Slovakia's Prime Minister being shot.
Yep, this happened some time ago, in the last few weeks, as Slovakia's Prime Minister got shot in an assassination attempt. And last I checked, he survives, as I'm looking it up right now. I probably should have looked this up before we started. And of course, that's happened a lot recently, like with Japan, remember, in the last 2 years and such. Robert Fico.
Robert Fico. The assassination of Shinzo Abe and Robert Nico as well, yeah.
And Abe, Kishida had an attempt last year, since we didn't cover that. So yeah, he had an assassination attempt on him, trying to get his assassination thing on Wikipedia. Of course, you're having a hard time finding it, but last I heard, he survived and such. Yep. So good at least. Although the guy is a piece of shit when I looked up for him because I didn't know who he was beforehand. So
he's a pro Russia guy who loves genocide. So
and the funny thing is, I looked up his party. It's like all over the place politically. Like very left-wing, like economically, but there's social conservatives that support Putler.
God, that sounds weird. Like frickin' Kata.
Yeah, it's very, very weird. It happened back on May 15th. He survived. The assassin was arrested, and it's under investigation why he did it and such. Still no idea about it, and it's probably going to be a long time before we know about it. But he is alive, at least. See if he recovers and all that. So yeah, as much as we may not like this guy because we just found out about him, please stop trying to kill these people. Just vote them out instead, people. Yeah. That's how you do it. So yeah, we got to say about it so far. For the little guy.
Oh man, like I've seen how terrible the dude is, but oh man, like can we please not do please not assassinate them? You're just gonna turn them into martyrs. That's happened multiple times in the past.
Every single time.
Instead, you vote them out.
Yep. So I guess we're going to go through that quickly, because Dylan Birds did a video, but it was like so long, and didn't have much details in it, so I decided to skip it. So I guess on now to the next topic.
Iranian president dying in a plane crash.
Yeah, this happened a few days ago. Rassi, because remember we covered his election back in 2021, he died in a plane crash as a few days ago he flew out to Azerbaijan for some like infrastructure stuff, and when he flew back, and it wasn't that far away from the Iranian-Azerbaijan border, the plane crashed, and it turns out it was heavy fog that did it. And if there's videos of when they went to the crash site, the fog was very, very deep. You couldn't see anything pretty much. It was very deep. And that's what probably led to his... I mean, that most likely is what led to his death. There is, of course, this massive conspiracy theory maybe it was Israel or America that killed him.
And Bush even slightly entertaining it is like, dude, you don't. Just don't.
And another one funny, too, is maybe Azerbaijan did it. Because if you didn't know, Iran and Azerbaijan do not like each other, if you knew that.
Well, of course, because Russia's allies with Armenia, and Azerbaijan wants to do their own Armenian genocide.
So, yeah. Not just he died, foreign advisor died, of course, trying to find Wikipedia. Whole bunch died and such like that. But it pretty much looks like it was just an accident. If you see the fog, it is a lot of fog. If you've seen the videos on it. 8 people died in total. So, of course, what happens now that he died? First off, who replaced him? Well, they do have a vice president and all that for acting right now. Mohammed Makbir. No idea what kind of person he is, though. Independent party, so I can't look up like what he was politically or such. But if you're the vice president of Racy, you're probably a POS. But we don't know for sure and all that. And they're gonna probably, because their elections are supposed to come up next year, and they sound like
move it forward.
They might,
because of this.
Yeah, I think they have to do elections within the next 50 days now. So I wonder if they're going to... I wonder if that means are they going to have like a special election and do have like another presidential election next year or what? Because, that's really weird. But then, of course, you got to wonder, what will this do with like the Iranian-Israel proxy war that's been going on? Probably nothing. Yep. Well, maybe Iran probably won't try anything because they're probably not in a stable position right now with your president dying. And if you didn't know, a whole bunch of Iranians actually celebrated Raisi dying. If you saw that.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's a lot. So, very unstable situation Iran is in. So, if you're smart, Iran, don't try anything stupid to almost probably kill your regime and all that. Just hopefully when the election comes up, Iranians, you vote for the most progressive person here, please. You need to do it. So, what do you got to say about this? Him dying.
Not really surprising considering the conditions, but it's like...
Why fly in the fog?
Yeah, like...
Come on.
Fuck, dude.
Really stupid.
Yeah.
So, hopefully Iranians pull through and get a base progressive person in. Hopefully! Yeah. But that's expecting a lot. Alright then, so I guess now on to the next topic.
How to get progressives to vote for Biden.
How funny, because someone on Reddit, I think it was yesterday, actually on the Vosh Reddit, actually posted their own thread about like how vote shaming doesn't work, and oh my god, I spent like an hour writing a huge essay on it this morning and such, because oh boy, the people in there are very stupid. So, this topic...
They worship a CIA agent.
Yep. So, of course, this topic is how to get basically like Bernie or Busters, or people like me, well, formerly me, since now I am going to vote for him, how to get people who don't want to vote for Biden to do so. And of course, this has been a problem for the Democrats since 2016, because no one wanted to vote for Hillary, no one wanted to vote for Biden, and then of course now a lot of people on the left don't want to vote for him again. Hell, like even Kyle recently just endorsed Jill Stein, if you saw that. So, there's a lot of apathy about voting for him. And of course, people are like, how do we get these people to vote for Biden? Of course, like the lesser two evils argument, the vote shaming, all that, yada, yada, yada. So, I want to provide the perspective of someone who normally, except this time, is on that side, who wouldn't vote for him. Because leading up to like the middle of 2023, I might have considered potentially a vote for him, because remember all the base stuff he was doing. But then, of course, 10/7 happened. Israel starts genociding the Palestinians, and of course, Biden, being the Zionist he is
helping arming terrorist he is.
Arming the shit out of them and such, which is the main reason why he's struggling. If he just forced Israel to stop, that would probably almost guarantee his election win coming up in a few months. But he is hurting himself and such. And of course, that's the main reason why people don't want to vote for him, which is fairly understandable, because who wants to endorse and support a genocide? It's like really bad. Like there's no argument you can do against it. Even Vosh for one bit, because he's like the worst person on this regard. Even he backed off it for a bit because it was just politically toxic. Like you can't win on it and such. But how do you get these people to win? I mean, vote for him. Because here's the reality. Your guys' arguments, like Vosh and all you, they don't work. The less
if anything, we should be shaming you, because you're the people who are helping Donald Trump.
Yeah, your arguments don't work. The lesser evil argument, that doesn't work. And then, of course, you got me and a whole bunch of others who are in deep blue or red states where our vote is not going to change anything. You think about me voting for Hillary is going to make her win in 2016? Nope. You think me helping me vote for Biden in 2020 is going to help him? Nope, he didn't need my help anyway.
Michigan's swinging back.
And likewise,
Michigan's swinging.
And likewise, when I vote for Biden come up, it's not going to change anything. He's still going to win Maryland by like 30 points like he did last time, because we hate Trump in our state so much.
Yep.
And then, of course, like the voter shame argument, I've been dealing with this for like 8 years now how I'm a Nazi and such like that, even though I'm very progressive.
They're
Hell,
closer
it's
to
really
to Nazis than we are.
Yep.
Because
So,
they're douche, absolute total morons.
like, you're gonna... Like, David Dole's probably the best person who can argue this. He refutes that vote shaming argument while still advocating vote for Biden and such. It just doesn't work. If anything, you're going to encourage people to not vote for Biden as a fuck you, basically.
Yep.
So, yeah. Here's what you all need to do. You need to take the example of me. You need to fuck off, drop your arguments, and let these people alone and go after people that are more who will buy your arguments more likely. And as for people like me, you need to leave them alone and let them decide whether or not they're going to change their mind on it. Because, likewise, once 10-7 happened, I was dead set on not voting for him again. But, of course, Trump opened his big fat mouth and said that if NATO countries don't pay 2%, and if they are invaded by Russia, not only would he not help them, he would encourage Russia to invade them and start World War III and such. So, when he said, because I mentioned that when we did that months ago, what he said was so irresponsibly stupid, and of course, Russo-Ukraine war, very, 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 very important to us.
Yes, because remember Ukraine's protecting Moldova and Georgia, and is indirectly protecting Taiwan, Nepal, and about 20 other countries.
Philippines recently, too. If you've seen that, China's been harassing Philippine fishermen and such, because they're cunts. And, but, when he said that, what he said was so irresponsibly stupid. I care about the Russo-Ukraine war so much. And, of course, Jill Stein and Cornel West, who might have normally have been the person I voted for. I can't because they are terrible on the Russo-Ukraine war vote. Everyone except Biden is bad on the Russo-Ukraine war. It's only him that's good. So that's when I realized, oh god, now I gotta vote for that old man. So that's probably the only way you're gonna get these people to vote for Biden. You need to leave them alone, and then let them decide if there's an issue that they care about very much that might change their minds. Like, of course, like the Russo-Ukraine war and Trump being an idiot just recently. Or another argument, or another thing you could do, which Fosh has said before, but he hasn't really done it much, is just shit on the Republicans and Trump, because they suck. Don't talk about Biden whatsoever. Just say Trump bad, Republicans bad, and if you keep doing that, maybe people be like, I'll just vote for a Democrat number one because they suck. Like, that could work too, which is something I've been saying for a while now, but unfortunately, a lot of the left don't do it that much. They're like so fervently obsessed with trying to defend Biden at all costs. You're not going to win on that. You need to drop it.
And then there's the other chunk of the left that's like that is obsessed with attacking Biden no matter what. Though to be fair, left in quotation marks.
Yep. Because we covered them too. Never give them credit for anything that's done and such. So yeah, that's why I gotta say you need to just drop it. Leave these people alone. Go after people that might buy your arguments more, and then leave them alone to decide if they're going to change their mind or not. So we have to say about all that.
Yeah, pretty much what I was thinking. I've got preferential voting, so I can be like, all right, Libs last, Labour second last, and then put all the low guys in with the Greens at the top.
I wonder. So what would you do in a situation, especially if you're in like a deep blue or red state? What would you do?
Democrats down the ticket, but I'd probably write someone in. But if I was in a swing state, I would hold my nose and vote Biden.
Sounds like you'd be like me pre Trump's big mouth then. Who can blame you? So yeah, because what Trump's, and of course a lot of people don't realize what Trump said was so stupid that is going to definitely sway people to vote against him and all that.
Yep.
Just keep open your big fat mouth. Oh, another thing that could help Biden, start doing base shit. Like, force Israel to stop what they're doing, because that's the main reason why you're struggling. But here are other things you could do. Like, I don't know, finally legalize weed once and for all instead of doing all this stuff recently. Like half-measure stuff. Go all the way and fully legalize it. Maybe that could be enough to change the whole thing around, and people would be like, yeah, I don't like you supporting genocide of the Palestinians, but I do support you legalizing weed everywhere. Maybe that could be enough. And finally get me absolve student debt for good and all that.
Yeah,
like, there are stuff you can do and all that could probably help you immensely, but you gotta do it. And that's the problem.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Just stop, like, voter shaming and all that. It just doesn't work. Just leave us alone for us to decide and such.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the majority of people are, like, Bernie or Bus or won't vote for Biden end up doing so. Like, that's...
Yeah.
We've seen the polls on it was, like, well over 50% of people saying they weren't going to vote for him. Don't, like, go on with it. They just go ahead and just do it still and such.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we've beaten that to death now. Now, I guess, on to the next one.
American primary elections needs reform.
And the reason
well,
why...
mainly because they're rigged. The 2024 one was rigged. The 2020 was rigged. 2016 was rigged. 2028 will be rigged. 2030, all DNC primaries are rigged.
Well, that's
to
true
a degree.
as well.
So all the Republican ones, to be clear, as well.
Although, funny enough, the Republican primaries aren't as rigged, believe it or not.
Yep.
They rig everything else except for that. They're actually more better on that. But, of course, do you know what happened, not this last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before?
What?
It was Maryland's primary.
Oh, yes, that's right. Where you are only allowed to vote for Joe Biden. Like
I actually voted for uncommitted. Based. So,
good.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because I found out, like, the night before I went to vote, so this was, like, only a week ago, that both Trump and Biden, already before recently, have officially clinched enough delegates to be their party's nominee, although they're not officially yet. But they mathematically have the numbers to indeed be the nominee and such like that. And of course, why is it that they are already a nominee before I and my fellow Marylanders get a say on it because we're so late? And you think we're bad? Oh no. There are several states that don't vote till like near the end of June still. Why the fuck?
I can imagine. Is there like a state that like doesn't vote until like the delegates have already been counted? So you're not given a choice.
Yeah, especially since too, by the time my election comes around, and God forbid all the ones after me, pretty much everyone has already dropped out and someone's already clinched the nomination, pretty much like Biden did. So it's like you're basically depressing my state and everyone else's states coming up still their turnout. Because why are people going to bother voting if someone's already been clinched the nomination and all that? This shit needs to be fixed. It needs to be all on the same damn day. Everyone has a fair say on it. God, let's see. It starts like in early February with like one state, then another, then another, then another. Then does the Super Tuesday where it's like half the states doing stuff like that. And then it just keeps trickling on for March, April, May. And then, of course, still got June coming up. It's stupid.
June, July, August.
It's just so stupid and all that. Oh my god, and of course all the reforms too, like with the DNC and all them.
Basically, their reforms to rig the primary to permanently rig the primary forever.
Yep, get rid of super delegates and all that. And of course, like mainstream media, like when they did with Hillary, like showed all her super delegates before she earned and stuff like that to try and make it look like she already was going to win and all that, which was complete horse shit and stuff like that. But that's like the big thing came up to my head recently when I went to vote. Why should our say be so depressed because we're so late into the game? Oh my god, that reminds me of like because of COVID in 2020, our primaries weren't until like near the end of June.
Again, don't worry. Again, there were probably primaries that didn't happen until after the candidate had already been selected because of COVID.
Let's take a look at that. Yeah, Trump, of course, already has 2,200 delegates. He needs like 1,100, and Biden has 3,600. He need slightly under 2,000 stuff. I'm trying to look up the actual states. Because I'm not the only one. I mean, Maryland was not the last one. There's still plenty more to go still. And, of course, doesn't seem to be in order. Like, Kentucky just happened the other day. Let's see. You got Montana on June 4th. New Jersey, New Mexico, June 4th. And then South Dakota, June 4th. Alright, so it looks like that's it. Coming up just like 4 states left. But why the hell should their say be suppressed?
It should be like really close, all close together.
All on one day. Ha, 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 ha. Like Super Tuesday.
Sure.
Like half the states are on the same day pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Just
Only ultimate Saturday. Every single state votes, and everyone gets to vote.
Yeah, and that would be more fair to everybody and stuff. So stupid. So yeah, it needs to be reformed. This is absolutely unacceptable for us waiting this long and pretty much not having a say on it anymore. Oh, do you guys have primaries down there? And is it like this?
Nope.
No primaries at all, huh?
Nope.
So how's
then
it?
again, we vote for our local member instead of vote for prime minister. So
that's right, because
the
parliament votes for the prime minister.
Yes, it's usually whichever party's in power has the majority or more seats that gets it.
So basically, just your congressman, pretty much.
Yeah. But again, the Congress people are thinged by the people, so it's not quite as bad.
So I wonder who determines who gets each spot then for each party. What if there's multiple people running for that same party spot?
Yeah, it's usually the people in the parliament. That's how we have
they decide for
Labour,
you.
Yeah, the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd. That's how we had the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd of Labour and the Turnbull-Abbott Scummo Libs over a decade, where we ran up with 7 different freaking fucking
Oh God, sounds like just how the UK the last 15 plus years.
Well, we've been pretty stable the last few. Scummo was our prime minister for a few years, and now Albo's basically gotten through his first term.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you guys are more stable than the UK, Italy, and Japan, for example. Oh, and of course Israel now too because of BB's BS. So yeah, we need a lot more work in that regard. So I guess now on to the last non-video topic.
Base Biden tariffs Chinese vehicles.
Base Biden,
of course, had a retarded meltdown about it because
Voss had a complete meltdown about
CIA agent.
So, anyways, guys, Biden just recently did one of the more base things that I will give 100% credit for. Thank you, Dark Brandon, for this, because this is awesome. He just tariffed a whole bunch of stuff that China imports. So it was, God, I'm trying to remember everything, but the main one that Vosh had a meltdown about is that Biden put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. So if you want to import stuff, you gotta pay 100% of the price first before you can bring it in and such. And that is absolutely awesome to his complete meltdown and all that. Oh my God, it's absolutely awesome. So, of course, he lied about it throughout the point of tariffs and all that. So, guys,
of course he did because remember, he's a neoliberal CIA agent.
And guys, he admitted before he supports outsourcing. So imagine that, guys.
Imagine he's a CIA agent.
Imagine openly admitting you want to outsource American jobs, people. And yes, he does support it.
He wants to outsource every single job in America because he's a neoliberal CIA agent.
And for the one time ever, his chat was right and he was wrong, and he was calling them racists and all that.
Well, of course he did, because he's a moron. Because again, the CIA told him to oppose this.
So yeah, guys, people are crying about, this is a tax on the people and all that. This is not capitalism and all that. No. The point of the tariff is so you buy American and such. Because there are 2 ways. Well, it's not necessarily just buying American, but there's 2 ways around the tariff besides, just sucking up and dealing with it. You can either, 1, just don't buy anything foreign, buy stuff in America, and do that. You help make American jobs, you help them make money, and of course, if you do that over time, eventually, the cars and stuff will become cheaper. Because demand will be met and people can afford it and such. That's how it's always been done. And oh my God, people are raging about how terrible American cars are. They're not. They're not. The fuck you talking about? And of course, people are raging about, people are always driving, Americans are obsessed with big ass trucks and all that. Boy, this is America. We love trucks here. Deal with it. Why do you think why we've had monster trucks for? And I'm sure that's how.
Yeah. Oh God, they do that. We've got them in Australia now, and they are so annoying. They take up one and a. They take up. They effectively take up two car parks without actually taking up two car parks. They take up the entire lane of roads and then some, and adults can't be seen in them. They're so high up that a lot of adults can't be seen.
That's tiny to you, but that's probably normal size over here.
I know. You've got literal monster trucks taking up 3 lanes of the road and running over other cars.
But hey, crushing cars is awesome in monster trucks, don't you know?
But not on the road. Not on the road.
But yeah, America's just like trucks pretty much. Like my mom, for example, she will never buy any car other than a Ford truck. That's it. You're not going to get her to do anything else but that and such. But yeah, so yeah, people have preferences and all that. I don't know why they can't accept that fact and such. And of course, like Vosh was talking about, enjoy paying $50,000 now for your truck and all that.
What?
A lot of cars in America are not that expensive. Used cars also exist too, for crying out loud, you dipshits. Yeah. Like, you can get used cars and such. God. And like, and of course, like I said before, because I remember, oh my god, I remember this back in 2018 when Trump did his tariffs on China. Like, the one thing that Trump actually did that was based, and people were crying about, if he like do tariffs on iPhones and stuff like that, or smartphones, and you get them American made, they're gonna be like $2,000 and such. No, it would only be like a few $100 more, and eventually, if you buy them, the prices will lower and such, or you'll make more money to compensate for it. And something that expensive, like $1,000, you usually don't buy it up front. It's down payments and stuff like that. Yeah. Like most people, even like those Chinese cars, if they're like $12,000 as they say they would be coming in, you're still not going to pay it up front in all that in most cases. You have to do down payments and stuff like that. So no one could afford them otherwise. Fucking idiots. And and so so that's one way tariffs could work. You buy American stuff, or another way you could do this is, instead of importing stuff, those Chinese companies could come in, build factories in America to build them here, and it's a win-win. They make money, American jobs, and all that. And of course, people also cry, if with the tariffs, because American cars suck, they'll never innovate and all that. No, because they one don't suck. But more importantly, if
they won't innovate with or without the tariffs.
But if you do that way too, where they can avoid tariffs by building their factories in America and building the cars there too, then they'll still have to face the competition regardless, so they would have to innovate. But it's still a win-win. No imports, make American jobs and all that, it's just a win-win. But of course, idiots like Vosh don't see that. So much for being pro-worker and pro-union, yet you're against helping them get stronger by outsourcing them. The contradiction, so many people point out that was a giant contradiction, and of course his dumbass didn't know it.
Said, because he's a neoliberal CIA agent.
and he was like all
I will keep hammering that point down, that him and Jimmy Dore are actually buddies behind the scenes at the CIA.
So... oh, yeah, there was another thing, too. Oh, he was so smug, like, economists always say this is a bad idea and all that. Economists, there are a lot of economists that think the minimum wage is bad. But we know that's full of crap.
Remember, some of them also think
that trickle-down economics is good.
They want to, they're pro-slavery and also probably pedophiles, too. If they think of the age of consent like they think about the minimum wage.
Yeah, like, there are a lot of economists that are just dumb and wrong. Just saying economists are against tariffs does not impress me whatsoever.
If anything, that's an argument as to why you should be for tariffs.
So, yeah, Bosch, you're a clown, always an idiot, and we gotta say about Bay Stark Brandon striking again. Let's fucking go!
Get this out as wide as possible, and you can probably get it out in the Rust Belt, and you might be able to pull Pennsylvania back blue.
Yep.
You're going to need Biden to get back to 270.
Oh, and by the way, United Auto Workers overwhelmingly support it. How about that, Bosch?
Guys.
Eat shit, you neolib cunt.
Yeah, you neoliberal CIA agent.
Let's go. Keep going, face Biden once again. Nice. Actually say something good about him for once. Now, which people on the left who are not idiots like Bosch also acknowledge him doing something good? I'll wait and see on that. Especially since Bosch, who always sucks Biden's dick, all of a sudden is shitting on him when he does something good. Pathetic. Alright, so now we've covered all the non-video topics, so now let's get to the video topics. So what do we start with first?
Dog shit Molotov-Ribbentrop video.
Ugh. So of course, guys, we've talked about Hakeem before. He's an Iraqi Marxist-Leninist in the video about Second Fault we covered last week when they were part of that group that got kicked off in Nebula.
Yep.
Now, of course, funny enough, I actually had sympathy for him before because a few years ago, remember Bosch made fun of him because the American government, when they invaded Iraq, like, destroyed his, like, family or house and whatever, and Bosch made fun of him because he said he would not vote for Biden because of it and stuff like that, and that was, like, pretty cool and such. But, of course, now Hakeem had to be an idiot and a hardcore Marxist-Leninist, and, oh boy, he's up there as bad as Second Thought, because he just did a video recently where he denied that the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact didn't happen, pretty much. Now, of course, for all of you who don't know, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was pretty much an economic alliance between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union right before World War II, where they helped each other take over pretty much all of Eastern Europe. They split up Poland.
Yep.
The Soviet Union was able to take over the Baltic states. They invaded Finland. They bullied Romania and such. It was just an evil thing, and that's why the Soviet Union really should be considered part of the Axis, because they were, and they almost did join 1940, if you didn't know that. So, yeah, very evil imperialism and all that, but of course, Hakeem, too much of a partisan Marxist-Leninist hack, he doesn't see it or he lies about it. So let's see this crap video. Oh, no. I didn't even see this before. Oh, no. He promoted a video, how Stalin tried to prevent World War II.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
No!
Hello.
He cursed at you,
we
idiot!
hear a lot about a supposed Hitler-Stalin pact, and much noise is made trying to link, by extension, two wildly differing ideologies and nations together through some forced horseshoe theory nonsense. If you're unaware, the horseshoe theory claims that the far left and the far right, rather than being at opposite and opposing ends of a linear political continuum, are instead incredibly similar. This is the sort of brain-dead take
Hitler and Stalin were very similar, pal. Hate to break the news to you.
Sides are bad shtick. Historically, the so-called liberal center has always immediately sided with the far right when it came down to it, while the far left was the only one to have any real form of successful and organic resistance. But that's not why I'm here today.
Yet the far left, like in Europe, pretty much instantly supported the Nazis when the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was signed, because they're brain-dead tribalists.
The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact.
Yep.
Note, the USSR and the Stalin era specifically was an incredibly nuanced episode of history. There are no great men, history is made by people and material conditions. Actions aren't taken in a vacuum, but instead are affected by real deficits and changes as they occur. Very rarely does something in history happen because someone is crazy, whatever that means. Much more commonly, we're simply missing or refusing to investigate the context. You don't have to like the USSR to be fair to the conditions it found itself in, nor do you need to agree with the actions taken just because you can understand why a certain action was taken. Broaden your mind a little, don't insult your intelligence, and be better than those that lap up the laziest pop history propaganda. Let's get started. A frequent trope...
I can't wait till when Animarchy does his video on the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Please hurry up and show up already.
Here is this. The 1939 Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was a military alliance between the USSR and Nazi Germany. This framing usually follows attempts of paralleling the USSR and Nazi Germany, and by extension socialism and fascism, in an ideological attempt at painting a...
Maybe the far right in America make that comparison, but I don't think I've ever seen people that criticize the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact go, socialism equals fascism. It's more of the Soviet Union was also evil like the Nazis, but of course that's never brought up because eventually they were attacked by the Nazis and we had to help them and such.
Certain strand of liberalism as a part and somehow more legitimate to the...
Well, yeah, liberalism by and large is superior to fascism and communism and such.
Being on the
Only
right
social democracy is superior.
to history, etc., than socialism. Note that this rarely is used against fascism and is intended solely to paint socialism in a bad light. I wonder why. Let's give some general background information. Soviet Russia and the subsequent USSR, having only fairly recently won a short but brutal civil war with Tsarist forces and invasions by many foreign powers, oriented foreign policy towards Germany in the mid-1920s.
And that actually happened too, like from the 1920s until the Nazis took over the Soviet Union and Germany actually were pretty much allied with each other secretly.
Yep.
Lesser-known treaties, the Treaty of Locarno and the Treaty of Special Relations with Berlin, helped shape that Soviet foreign policy.
Well, considering how similar Hitler and Stalin were, it means that of course there would be.
Locarno, between the main European belligerents of World War I, sought to establish a lasting peace, which Soviet Russia would generally benefit from, since the country was so utterly devastated by the Great War and the Civil War following the October Revolution. However, the USSR viewed the treaty with suspicion, since it appeared that Germany was joining an anti-Soviet bloc. The other treaty, that of special relations with Berlin, was meant to assuage these fears by being a 5-year treaty with Weimar Germany, in which they would be neutral in the event that either country was attacked by a third party. Unfortunately, the optimism for long-term peace wouldn't last long. In the late 1920s, the Nazis began their rise to power, which infamously culminated in the appointment of Hitler as the Chancellor of Germany in 1933. The rise of the Nazis caused the USSR to refocus its foreign policy efforts to combat this threat. The policy, which came to be known as collective security, attempted to strengthen relationships with France and Britain in an attempt to isolate Germany. Meanwhile, the fear of Western leaders' imaginations and the interests they served led them to irrationally fear the spread of communism and were reluctant to enter into diplomatic relations with the USSR lest they catch the communist virus. Instead, the West decided that...
Now, what he's talking about is the Soviet Union, before World War II, actually did try to do like some alliance with the UK and France to like be anti-Nazi Germany. See, what he doesn't point out, however, is basically part of the deal what the Soviet Union proposed, that if they did get in this like alliance against the Nazis, they basically wanted to control the Baltic and Poland, which is something the UK and France were absolutely against the idea of, which is the correct thing, because you guys are imperialists too to try and stop the Nazis. Like, stop. If you really want to stop the Nazis, be honest about it and stop trying to bully your neighbors under your control. Not that hard to do.
Nazis would be a better strategy, and we all
like the UK and France didn't try to propose this in this collective security agreement. It was just stop the Nazis. That's it.
How that turned out. As a result of this reluctance on the part of the West, the USSR was forced to fend for its security alone. Back to the video in just a second. Let's hear from Keeps.
Alone.
And of course, an ad. Yeah. To defend themselves alone. No, the reality is, the Soviets couldn't get this collective thing with the UK and France, so Nazi Germany decided to replace them instead and ally each other to carve up Europe. So the Soviets got what they wanted.
Now let's get to the background of the pact. The Treaty of Non-Aggression between Germany and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, more commonly known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, so named for the signatories of each government, the Foreign Minister of Nazi Germany at the time, Joachim von Ribbentrop, and Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov. The agreement was simple, if one ignores the secret provisions. It straightforwardly lays out a 10 to 15 year period of mutual neutrality in which neither country would commit aggression against the other, support or provide aid to a third party committing aggression against the other.
And the Soviet Union gave major economic aid to Germany during this period, to the point where maybe Germany might not have done so well in World War II at that point if it wasn't for that. And it showed too, when they eventually attacked the Soviet Union, they had major shortages afterwards. Maybe you shouldn't have attacked them, just like you shouldn't have helped me join Japan's attack on America afterwards. Two costly mistakes.
Among stipulations regarding peaceful solutions to disagreements between the respective countries. However, there are 4 so-called secret provisions, and the famous partitioning of Poland isn't among them. That is part of the mythos surrounding the agreement and serves
it is
the purpose of demonizing the USSR, as well as deflecting blame from the Allied Western powers' appeasement of Hitler and the Nazis. The article that is misconstrued as Stalin working with Hitler to split Poland in half territorially for the same expansionist ends actually states something quite different and reveals the true Nazi intentions, which we'll discuss in the next section. Suffice to say, it takes quite the quirky reading of the article to come to a conclusion as outlandish as Stalin conspiring with Hitler to split Poland. It takes an equal amount of audacity to repeat this nonsense as historical
you moron!
fact, but that's a conversation for another time.
Damn it!
Alright, let's get into more detail. We'll start by
recalling... This is the stupidity and
Marxist-Leninist brain rot. Oof.
Yep, this is Stalinist. This is Joseph Stalin rotting their brains.
That the USSR actively pursued overt military alliances with Britain and France in a policy known as collective security. One such offer, made just 2 days before the war began, had the USSR sending 1 million troops, artillery, and airborne forces to help stop Hitler if they agreed to the pact. Such a pact would have drastically altered the course of history. Unfortunately, both Britain and France declined the offer, forcing the USSR to operate unilaterally without Allied support. With the collective security policy not bearing fruit, the USSR decided the next best course of action was some kind of treaty with Germany that would delay the war machine the Soviets knew were coming for them. Soviets understood that the West's appeasement policy that had resulted in the annexation of Austria and Czechoslovakia was a failure and prelude to an expansionist war by Germany, and that Poland was in Germany's crosshairs next. The Soviets sought to buy as much time to prepare and therefore was left with the unenviable position of having to sign a non-aggression treaty with Germany in order to provide for the security of the USSR and her citizens. All this is also forgetting that the USSR was the last country to sign a non-aggression pact, after Poland and France and Belgium, the Baltic countries, amongst others. That's always never mentioned. I wonder why. If you think this explanation sounds conspiratorial or is commie propaganda, then consider that this explanation was common as early as 1943 when in Time magazine, former US ambassador to the USSR Joseph Davies was interviewed about various topics regarding the USSR. In his response to the fifth question about the USSR's opaque foreign policy, he said, in part, and I quote, "When they, the Soviets, lost faith in both the will and the capacity of the Western democracies to join them realistically to stop Hitler, they still tried to maintain their security and their peace by entering into a non-aggression pact with Hitler in 1939. This was not a pact for mutual offensive against Germany's enemies. In that particular, it provided only that neither would attack the other. They gained precious time, which they feverishly employed to protect their security against the inevitable Nazi attack." This isn't the only mention of this explanation in the same issue of Time. Calling the USSR, and I quote, realistic, it backs up the claim with the following. She, the USSR, had been the greatest advocate of collective security. But when she saw that the democracies would not support that policy, she turned completely around and gained time to prepare herself by signing a pact with Hitler. The third mention is brought up in a larger context of other treaties and agreements the USSR had entered into prior, including their acceptance into the League of Nations, and I quote, "Under the aegis of then Foreign Commissar Litvinov, the USSR tried to establish collective security as a method of thwarting the rising tide of fascism. But the League of Nations collapsed, and was followed by appeasement at Munich, the Soviet-Nazi non-aggression pact in 1939, and the entrance of the Reds into the war when Hitler invaded them on June 22, 1941. By now it should be crystal clear that the narrative that resulted from Cold War distortion is in blatant contravention of the facts. The fact the USSR signed with Germany wasn't a military alliance, it was a means of buying time to prepare for the easily anticipated invasion. Related to the military alliance myth is the claim that Stalin conspired with Hitler to partition Poland between Germany and the USSR in one of the secret articles of the pact brought by the Germans, specifically secret article number 2. If you read through it,
doomed their population to be annihilated.
It's fairly clear as to what Germany's true intentions were. The most obvious happens to be in the first line of the article. In the event of a territorial and political rearrangement of the areas belonging to the Polish state. This is a rather long-winded and euphemistic way to describe an invasion. The phrasing really betrays what the Germans want to do and then presents them in the treaty as a pure hypothetical. Also, remember, this is a secret provision of the treaty, which only serves to further make clear that Germany was starting in Poland in what had till then been a series of easy, albeit diplomatic.
In the event of a territorial political rearrangement of the areas belonging to the Polish state, the sphere of influence of Germany and the USSR shall be bounded approximately by the lines of the rivers Nare, Vistula, and San. Which is what they did.
The draining annexations.
I find funny how he didn't bring the rest of it up after he just showed it.
After all, while the Germans made it obvious that they were bent on expansion, they still wanted to have the veneer of plausible deniability. They soon use another euphemism for invasion as well, since the existence of an independent Polish state is implied to be in the hands of the signees' respective governments rather than, the Polish people themselves. Poland was unfortunately really affected by anti-Semitic conspiracies in the form of Judeo-Bolshevism, the extremely stupid idea that Jewish people were overrepresented in and thereby controlled the Soviet government. This anti-communist sentiment was a powerful guiding force in the Polish foreign policy. Obviously shunning the possibility of an alliance with the USSR, Poland sought to force strategic military alliances with Britain and France to guard against a Nazi invasion and signed a mutual defense pact only months before the invasion would actually occur. In this context, Stalin had to make a difficult decision about how to best allow the USSR to survive the oncoming assault, which would be called Operation Barbarossa, which began in 1941.
Additionally, yet he, of course, didn't think that was going to happen, remember? That's
Exactly.
why the Soviet Union was caught so off guard by
the notion that Stalin was secretly planning a joint offensive with Hitler in order to partition Poland hasn't really been substantiated. If you look at the order of events...
It is a secret protocol, just said it, we just read it, and that's what they did!
The Soviet leadership and the action of the Red Army, which we're going to talk about in a second, you clearly see that this was not the the typical actions of a conquering army.
Oh,
Stalin's
and by the
focus
way,
on invasion threat from Germany and the time he was trying to buy to thwart one was only in regard to the USSR, not Poland. Of course, he only cares about his own nation. The USSR leadership was absolutely blindsided by the Nazi invasion of Poland. It occurred only 1 week after signing the pact and only 1 day after the Supreme Soviet approved it.
Yeah,
These are
sure,
not the
they were
actions
caught
of
off
state
guard,
anticipating
like
a joint
everyone
offensive.
else,
Just to be clear, the USSR leadership
they
understood
should
that it
have
was
been
planning on
waiting
invading
for
Poland,
that.
but not so
They should have been
immediately and so
expecting
blatantly.
that it
Due to them
to
being
come.
caught off guard, the Soviet invasion of Poland not only happened days after the Nazi invasion, but was hastily and poorly organized. The Red Army was still devastated from World War I and the Civil War. Much of the Soviet efforts at the time had been focused on improving the lives of people and rebuilding the country. In fact, Polish citizens
they were so devastated that they conquered Poland pretty easily with no effort like the Nazis did.
Army was so deprived, as far as armies go at the very least.
Now, if you want to actually say they were poorly organized, go look at the Winter War later on.
Mentioned that they're malnourished or poorly clothed.
I bet he won't like that.
Foul smelling because of
ruin his
the
day.
tar that they use in their footwear, as well as mentioned how Red Army soldiers were fascinated by objects that Polish peasants found commonplace. Again, not surprising for a nation that had just started its first round of industrialization. As I note, practically all the areas the Soviets would go on to quote-unquote occupy prior to 1941 either were part of the post-Tsarist political structure or had their own episode of the Bolshevik Revolution, which happened to be defeated either by white armies, for example Finland in the Civil War, or German World War I policy, specifically Brest-Litovsk. Okay, so if the USSR didn't conspire with the Nazis to partition Poland amongst themselves, then why did the USSR invade Poland? There's plenty of sources that already focus and almost exclusively
Why did they invade Poland? Oh, gee, I wonder why.
Unjustifiable mistakes committed by the Red Army, as with any army, of course. But this overemphasis really only serves as a way for liberals to equate the communists and Nazis, which is an ideological pool with the depth of a puddle. Let's take a look into the nuance. The USSR leadership's original justification given for the invasion of Poland was to regain lands lost in the Treaty of Riga, which concluded the 1919 and 1921 Polish-Bolshevik War. Ukraine and Belarus, then a part of the USSR, were invaded by Poland in their attempt to re-establish the borders of the Polish Empire of 1772. In the treaty, the Polish border was established by Britain and the US at 200 miles east of the Curzon Line. However, due to the march of time and the migrations of people that occurred during previous eras, the lands acquired by Poland were no longer ethnically Polish, but were mainly Ukrainian and Belarusian. Therefore, Poland was seen as an occupier or colonial power even in these regions by minority groups.
Sure, Poland was an occupier, sure.
They claimed they were compelled to counter the invasion by Germany.
Colonialist empire, it'd be the Soviet fucking Union.
And the Nazis.
Because we know that
liberate the Polish proletariat.
wants the lands of the Soviet Union and the politics of the Russian Empire.
It's an oppressed minority.
Accept it, you red Nazi terrorists.
Step 2: liberate the Polish proletariat by killing them.
Of course, this may sound kind of two-faced, but they did genuinely believe this stuff, and the work of Kotkin goes as far as to prove as much. The Red Army used slogans of class emancipation with national liberation, which caused confusion amongst the various minorities who had their own interests and scores to settle with Poland. While the Soviets intended to rescue the Russians and Ukrainians from mostly Polish class domination, each group found support for their own particular ethnic claims and or projects, of course. Red Army soldiers entering Poland, tasked with preparing local populations ideologically for the invasions, shouted slogans which explicitly encouraged the population to, and I quote, rectify the wrongs it had suffered during 20 years of Polish rule, and disseminated very base leaflets, actually, that urged Polish soldiers to turn their weapons against the capitalists, the landowners, and the military officials, which similarly encouraged the local population to assault their landlords.
As
with,
we
quote,
kill you right back!
Scythes, axes, and pitchforks.
Do everything
Anyways,
that you do.
as a result of this propaganda effort, much of the initial brutality that occurred in what would become Soviet-occupied Poland, or reconstituted Ukraine and Belarus, the maps get fuzzy after a while, began prior to the beginning of the invasion proper. It should also be noted that most of it was selective, targeting only those of the then perceived as oppressor classes, such as landlords. This is important to mention given that so much attention is given to later mistakes, and this period gets unfairly lumped in by liberals, since they see mega landlords getting a comeuppance and their land expropriated as a bad thing. I don't, clearly. Anyways, the Red Army wasn't only handing leaflets out, they were also given substantial spending money. This was further facilitated by the ruble being declared legal tender in the occupied area on parity with the Polish currency. Exact figures are hard to pin down, but locals were shocked by the sheer amount of goods the Red Army soldiers were buying, and maybe even more surprising, doing so without haggling prices. As the Red Army advanced through Poland, a significant power vacuum pushed swiftly ahead of it. This created an immediate demand for auxiliary measures to maintain some kind of order. This led to the formation of something called the Citizens' Guard, a voluntary assembly of mostly quote-unquote patriotic, rightist citizens in various municipalities. Mostly local people, minor officials, that kind of stuff. And their primary function was to aid the dwindling local governments, who had by then mostly disbanded, in order to ensure the safety of the remaining population, just to maintain order, basically. Unsurprisingly, the Citizens' Guard was legitimized by its connection with the prior right-wing regime, which influenced its ethnic and class structure, unsurprisingly. Despite the widespread anti-communist sentiment of Poland, many towns and villages turned out to...
With their, hierarchies.
Large numbers to greet and welcome the Red Army. Not all were spontaneous, nor did all have local organizational impetus. Prior to the invasion, the USSR sent people ahead of the Red Army to organize receptions for incoming troops. The local residents, especially those belonging to the Polish and Belarusian ethnic minority groups, seemed to be prepared for the Soviet invasion, and although some were enthusiastic about their arrival, others needed to be persuaded or coerced even into organizing welcoming gestures. A crucial factor contributing to the positive atmosphere surrounding the Soviet troops' entry was their general perception that their presence prevented the arrival of Nazi forces, or in some places even expelling them by force. These were compelling reasons to greet the Red Army as some sort of liberator, unsurprisingly. You have to remember that along with the massive anti-Semitism within Poland, there was also at the time a fairly large radical left movement that was all but...
It wasn't... What was it? Oh, I wouldn't say... Hang on. I gotta get the clip.
Man, Hakeem, you're being more dumber than a nitwit in Minecraft. Oof.
Crushed and dispersed by the far right-wing government.
This is the thing on... This is more what I'm thinking.
What?
I did it in put it in general.
Oh boy.
Celebrations, whether organic or not, were very amicable, predominantly comprising young individuals from ethnic minorities such as Belarusians, Jews, and some Ukrainians. They included the construction of triumphal arches, the raising of red banners, showering troops with flowers, hugging and kissing them, the usual stuff. Soviet invasion plans emphasized the importance of a proper and cordial reception because they saw it as a precursor for a plebiscite that would bring forth the political
more like under new management
will of the local populace. With all the celebration, much of the older generation was still terrified, though. Some even went into hiding from the Red Army or worse. However, since the Red Army's approach, characterized by restraint and selective action rather than indiscriminate violence, they managed to garner a measure of relief among the general population, specifically against the groups that were usually targeted, which include officers, policemen, landowners, etc. What's more is that Red Army soldiers, despite commands to the contrary, usually did engage with locals and establish some sort of cordial relationships. After the Red Army established control over the areas they occupied, they embarked on local governance, of course to maintain order, but also to help channel it towards the provisioning of the Red Army, arresting reactionary societal figures, preparing the elections that were upcoming. For the next 20 months, the region that the Soviets occupied experienced a heavy dose of electoral politics. There were 3 different elections, 2 of which were within the first 6 months of the occupation. The United States didn't bother to do that with half the places they occupy, and their explicit goal is apparently democracy. Anyways, I have relevant reading recommendations that you can check out here if you're interested in how the USSR worked and all that. Anyone who has a proper understanding of how the Soviet system worked isn't surprised by how the Soviets operated during the occupation as it relates to civil engagement and participation. Now, it should be clear as to why Western sources demonized the USSR and tried to put the Red Army in its conduct on par with the
because they were just as bad as the Nazis.
Yep.
Sorry, pal.
Nazis. The USSR
and they were just as bad as the former German and Russian empires, too.
True to their principles during the occupation of Poland. It should also be clear just how nonsensical the claim about the Soviets and Nazis conspiring to partition Poland is. Rather, the Soviet occupation of Poland could be seen as the Soviets' attempts to save as much of the whole
Baltic and freaking Romania and Finland too, but the Soviets couldn't get away with that one.
The violence of the Wehrmacht. Unsurprisingly, there are several reasons, and not all of which were altruistic. Despite that, Red Army and the Soviets were generally preferred to that of the Wehrmacht and the Nazis, except for a select segment of anti-Semitic Polish people and Ukrainians of Poland who preferred the Nazis because Judeo-Bolsheviks and all that. Regardless, they were really warm to the population, and even though not all were locally organized by enthusiastic supporters, the conduct of the local populace seems to indicate that most people saw them, at a minimum, as the lesser of 2 evils. Doesn't make everything they did right, but historical nuance is a interesting and fun thing to discuss. I look forward to random 14-year-olds comments about 8 Polish babies. And a final addendum, this one will just be a bit rambly. For the love of God, please don't misunderstand me.
I'm still looking for it.
Many mistakes in this. It would have been better that there be no pact. It would be better for them
to
not occupy Poland. But if you were in the particular place and the
that's right, you're a psychic type, no surprise.
Danger, I don't know if you would have made better decisions particularly, especially when there was goodwill shown in the form of collective security with France and Britain, who would have prevented all this nonsense to begin with, or at least greatly affected it.
Yeah, that'd fit type-wise. Oh, he's a skunk tank.
Oh my god, what a dog shit video that was. Oh my god. So yeah, we gotta say about that pile of crap. Oh god.
Jesus, doing freaking Soviet apologia for to own the imperialists.
Wow, you support imperialism, Hakeem. Oof.
Supporting imperialism to own the imperialists. But Tim, you shit libtard fag, it's only imperialism when the West does it.
Hey, Hakeem, you know, at the end of World War II, America could have just annexed all of Germany and Japan, right?
Yeah.
And what are they going to do about it?
That was the plan at one point, where they were going to pretty much commit a revenge genocide. They're gonna,
on Germany, definitely one the Morgenthau plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, and isn't there also another one for like Japan where like they contemplated being like, we're not just gonna burn every town to the ground. We're like gonna set fire to try to set fire to like all the forests and all that. Literally burn the country to the ground.
Yep, we could have done anything we want, but you know what we did? We built them up and made them better and made them allies. Oh, that's right. That's still imperialism. I forgot that. Damn, man, you got me again. Man.
Because the West doing literally anything is imperialism. Remember?
Oh,
the West
got me again.
Just cease to exist according to these people.
I wonder how Germans and Japanese feel about it. Oh, it's right. They're puppets, so who cares about what they think? Oh, damn it again. He got me again.
And what about Ukraine? Oh, wait, Ukraine's a Nazi terrorist state.
Ukrainians
that's right. Neo-Nazis.
Man,
that's right.
Man, we really are stupid. How did we not realize all this stuff? But seriously. But seriously, guys, the Nazis in Soviet Union partitioned Poland. Like, that was part of the secret protocol that he literally saw, but he didn't mention the part that I mentioned the rest of it. Selective showing. Very bad faith there, Hakeem. So, God, that video was trash. Well-deserved dislike and all that. Oh, God. Don't be an idiot tanky like Hakeem, people, please. Just as dumb as fascists. Oh, God. So now, on to the next video.
And that would be Arena Football League's revival is a disaster. This is much more you than me.
Yep, and funny enough...
Because I don't really care about this.
And funny enough, every time I look up AFL, guess what shows up?
The Australian Football League?
How did you know that? And funny enough...
Because the Australian Football League is the same 3 letters as your Arena Football League.
Yep, I would have thought though that would show up more likely because it's America and we care about American football. But surprisingly, no.
Apparently, that shows you how much of a disaster it is if the freaking Down Under thing is showing up before any of them.
And by the way, the other day, one of their games showed up and I enjoyed it. It was like American football combined with soccer, like rugby. Let's go. AFL was pretty cool to watch. Although some things need to probably get more explained more, because don't you watch AFL?
I do watch it, yeah. So, could probably take... Actually, there's, let me pause this, and...
Because I noticed when one of the games I watched, it seemed like they were focused on, like, the players, and like, a certain player on the scoreboards instead of the team, which seems, like, really weird to me. But we're getting off topic. We need to get to the actual topic. So, of course, the Arena Football League... You don't know about this, probably, but since the 80s, there's been a new sport called arena football, where they do football in, like, a small, like, arena stuff, where the fields are, like, cut in half in size and such, and the AFL pioneered it since the 80s, and they folded 2 times. They folded during the Great Recession, 2008, then 2009 they came back, and they went on for, like, another 10 years, and then they folded again in 2019. And of course we thought that's probably the end of it and all that. But no, they were brought back in 2023, and just around a month ago, they came back as their as a new season. And oh my dear God, I've seen so many football leagues die like in their first year. Oh my God, everyone who watches football, spring football, probably remembers the Alliance American Football League of 2019. That died before the season even ended. Then there was the XFL's revival in 2020, but that got canceled because of COVID and such. But, oh my God, the amount of disaster they're going through even compares to them. Like, they're stable compared to the AFL. Oh my God, it is so horrible. It's also extremely funny, too, how bad it's been. This is just wild. And here we go for Urinate and Cherie again. So, let's go. You're not going to believe how sad this is. Go on.
Spring football is in the air. You probably have heard something about the UFL these past few months.
There are attendance. Right. In, like, 2022, I think it was, the USFL from, like, the 80s was revived, and just recently, they and the XFL, which was revived after COVID, merged together, so now they have a spring football league going the last 2 years. So, nice for something other than the NFL, which we're not going to get till freaking September.
Issues in a few cities, but they're holding their own organizationally and should successfully complete another season. There are typical startup woes, but it's healthy. This video isn't about that. Did you know the Arena Football League was back? I don't know if many people did. Well, if you're interested in AFL 3.0 and want to learn about this upstart entity, don't. It's chaos. You've missed absolutely nothing good, which is why it's on death's door not even a month after launching. This isn't hyperbole. It's a chasm of despair. This revival all begins with Lee Hutton, the man with the plan. A Minnesota-based attorney who knows his way around legality. The first black commissioner of a U.S. sports league is trumpeted by puff pieces across America. Celebration of Frankenstein's birth in a private party in Las Vegas when doing absolutely nothing to justify it. Spending tens of thousands of dollars in the art of self-fellatio. It's obvious as to the problem off the bat. This guy doesn't have the money. Lawyers make good income, but not run an entire football league salary. Yet either he had blinding ambition or the men around him enabled his fantasy.
Okay, yep, this is the one.
16-team expansion league?
Yeah, that was the first problem when they brought the AFL back. They went with 16 teams to start off.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
ridiculous. A lot of teams.
I'm
gonna check something here.
They should have freaking just stuck with like 8 or so, like all the other leagues have done it. That was way too many teams to start off with.
The cities they were hyping for franchises didn't even know about this.
Oh yeah, Lee Hutton would announce teams and cities and they didn't even know about it, which is gonna be a thing you're gonna be noticing come up a lot.
The new AFL was gonna start in 15 months. Considering bureaucratic red tape alone, this is
there were only a handful.
Half the cities that were hyped at the time don't have franchises. This was screwed from day one. I believe I can explain it like this. Lee Hutton had the idea to revive the AFL. His goal was to lure in suckers with much deeper pockets than him to claim the teams and cities he wanted. The brand alone was the key, and he was hoping that a few knights in shining armor would buy his multi-level
Australian Football League only started with like 5 or 6 teams.
Yeah, that's how you're supposed to do it smart. We're probably going to be talking about that near the end of the video, how to run a sports league successfully, but yeah, you got to start off very, 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 very small. Like, hell, the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, I think they had more, or I think the NFL at least had about the same teams when they started in 1920, but most of them eventually folded, hell, during the season, all that. Like, the Big Four in America, they all had terrible financial woes for like decades before they finally stabilized.
Someone like Elon Musk yearning to make another meme offer.
Like Musgrave would care about the AFL.
A bunch of shitty dad jokes and fill arenas with bots and
He's too busy being a Nazi on X, excuse me.
If anyone took the bait. Sadly for him, rich people can smell a bad deal from a mile away.
You sure about that, you tree? Look at Musgrave.
Back out after realizing this was fucked. Lee and his men were left holding the bag. Considering they wanted 16 teams, it merely had them assimilate established entities from other leagues. Forming the AFL Voltron with 3 teams in Kansas? You go from Chicago and Phoenix to Salina, Rapid City, and Billings? That's the ambition you had? Alright, it's because of the cities and other leagues conspiring against you to cut you down. Guess some of these teams will have to be shelved.
So yeah, didn't have a lot of wealthy investors, even tried to poach teams from other arena leagues and all that.
For the future. I wouldn't expand until you fix the damn website. If you do a Google search on the Arena Football League, you'll click on the first link that pops up. In the AFL's case, this website hasn't been updated since the announcement of the league's revival. Dead links everywhere, a long expired countdown ticker, it's the modern version of Space Jam.
It's not even their current site!
The real website is
another site underneath! They have 2 sites and one of them is still up!
It would be the fact that you can't find things like box scores and league standings.
How can I run the MTWS wiki better than you all?
Game schedule on the site. And that only goes up to week 3 of 10. Like, this is basic fucking shit. How do you not put easily verifiable information on your official page? This is 15 minutes of work at most. What the fuck are you doing over there? Knowing this league, that's a tough ask. 2 of these franchises don't even have team websites.
A whole bunch of teams pages when you press them, they don't even load like the Philadelphia Soul. Their domain's been
an AFL team
gone.
Is taking on the dreaded adversary known as opponent. So how do you watch this exciting match as a fan? The golden goose for AFL 3.0 was its TV deal, showcasing games on the NFL Network.
Oh yeah, they were gonna do a deal with the NFL Network where they were gonna have games aired on the NFL Network, which of course would make sense and all that. But there's 2 problems with it. First off was the terms itself. You want to know how bad it was?
How bad?
The NFL Network was going to get like pretty much all the revenue from the game, and the AFL was going to pay the NFL Network to play their games.
Oh, that's a disaster recipe.
It's supposed to be the other way around, people.
Exactly.
It's the networks are supposed to pay you to play their games, and then they get the advertising revenue from it.
Yep.
The AFL is literally paying the NFL Network to show their games, and then they get nothing out of it. Wow.
Opportunity for potential eyeballs to glance for a hot minute, then never think about it.
You'll last maybe a year with that.
You need all the money for crying out loud. And they're just giving up money like that. Oh, and they were going to give, it was a 3-year deal with $1.3 million a year, so $4 million in total for this. And that's money that you probably badly need very early on.
$1.3 million a year.
They will need it.
Receive no advertising revenue from the games. Being bent over a fucking barrel like the corpse
How
of
do you let
Billy
the NFL
Mays.
Network fuck you like
Throw
this?
any OxyClean around? Because there are some
They're
stains to fix
stupid,
up.
that's why.
But it gets worse and worse and worse.
Due to the AFL not paying production crews. Then the
You're gonna be
NFL
stunned how
realized
bad
they
it
were drunk
gets.
when signing the deal and snuck out the door the morning after.
Oh yeah.
Might have been.
Oh yeah. And then the deal didn't even happen because they fucked up. So the NFL Network thing didn't happen. And if anything, that might have been better for
For the
them.
best. You'd think it'd be on the AFL's website, but the stream schedule hasn't been updated in a week.
So
Instead,
they're
broadcast
streaming
on
their games
something
online
called
on some random
Fire
site.
Network? What the hell is that? The rampant technical issues don't ruin everything the
a
product
random
does.
streaming site hosting your
These Arena
games
League
now.
fields, it's a wonder why. Different footballs, end zones, sidelines, and goalposts for each franchise.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Louisiana
Oh
Voodoo
my
from
god, the goalpost in the one game isn't even straight! Oh
Charles
god!
Lafayette at the last minute, but you
Imagine the goalpost in the AFL not being straight.
That's actually not allowed.
Yeah, same goes in the
Oh,
NFL too. And one game it was just casually bent to the
can't
side.
even make the upright straight. It's not even the
And
worst.
then another
That's
one.
an outrage on that.
Roof is way too low. Punts will hit the
Shitty
damn air duct,
arenas
and these
with
sidelines
two
are a
small
physical
roofs
danger.
that would hit
This
the
is
ball would
coward.
hit the roof when they
This
punt
arena
it
is
or
built
hell
for
maybe
rodeos
pass
and
it.
auctions, not football. Match with Billings had to be moved to Washington because of it. In fact, you'll notice a lot of discrepancies in the supposed 16-team league. There's an empty slot where the Iowa Rampage were featured. Shut down after a game due to inept league leadership and no
And one weekend, boom, one team already folded.
financial support. Yet they
And then somehow they played the next week somehow.
They got lucky.
Even though they
They
folded.
weren't the Philadelphia Soul. A franchise
gets worse and
cursed with
worse.
league ownership. Nobody was paid. They had no personal trainers.
Then next
no
up,
work.
Philadelphia Soul. They weren't paid, they were fucked over, so the entire team quit. So number two folded in week
Compton
1.
were given one-way flights to Louisiana for week 1. So how did they get
Teams
home?
went down in the
Simple,
first
they don't
week.
have one.
God
The team
damn.
got booted out of a Super 8 due to unpaid bills. The head coach fucked off in disgust, and the entire roster got cut just before the game for demanding their paychecks. Yet Philadelphia somehow played a game against
even though the
the
Soul
Voodoo.
folded, they still
isn't
played
the Soul.
because they had an
That is the
a
Dallas
minor
Falcons.
league team come in and play,
Minor
and they
league
got
arena team playing as
obliterated.
Philadelphia in this match.
For
We're in the
fuck's
first week
sake.
of play, and a team has already been Buffalo Bills.
Imagine playing when you're folded. And that happened 2 times in 2 weeks.
Fuck me. Fuck me hard. Fuck me so hard.
The Soul would be exhumed by Shang Tsung about a week later. Yes, on pause, whatever you say. The Georgia Force also shut down.
Then
around
the
same
Georgia
time,
Force
and the Louisiana
folded,
Voodoo
so that's
have canceled
3 teams,
several games
and then
in a
Voodoo
row.
would folded, so
The
4
Crumpler Kid,
teams
too.
in 2 weeks
Look at
folded.
the West Texas Desert Hawks,
Wow.
moving from the National Arena League to join the new
It's
AFL.
still not over.
Problem is the NAL sued them for breach of contract. The case was
Another
settled,
Arena
so
League
at least
sued
there's
them
a
because
peaceful
one of their
ending there.
teams voided their
Unlike some other
deals.
teams. The Minnesota Myth of the baby of Lee Hutton and his wife Diana, yet they're allegedly refusing to pay or feed players. The team nearly didn't play their week 2
Another
match due to
team
player revolt.
that's owned by the commissioner of the
Contest
league
in
who
Albany
revived
was
it.
canceled since
Seems
the
like a
Myth didn't
conflict
make
of
the
interest.
Their head coach
And
resigned
then
shortly thereafter.
massive firings, and
He
then
probably
they
wasn't
fold. So
there.
that's 5 teams
Players
gone now
won't be
in
either,
3
as the team
weeks.
is now a myth.
That's how many
But it's
left?
all a conspiracy, Diana says. Everything you're hearing are lies to sabotage
5
the
teams in 3
People
weeks
is a
folded.
conspiracy now? Groups like Rapid
So
City
how
are caught
many
in the
teams
crossfire.
are there? So that's 11 teams left who are probably going to die in the next 4 weeks.
6 players have already left the team. Their public Twitter account is actively criticizing Hutton. Their owner is calling for heads, and the men remaining refuse to play a match until they were paid. That obviously isn't happening. Billings was warming up on the field when word came out their game was canceled. May I remind you, it's
games
week
'cause
3.
teams
You've
fold.
already realized this, but this AFL is merely a name only. This league is a head.
Race.
latching on to a long inanimate host and controlling its actions against the will of nature and God itself. Shuffling
this was
around,
the originating league of
something to
arena
interact
football,
with
and
as it
it's
taps
this
the host to its
embarrassing.
needs and whims. In this case, it's simply feeding off its life supply. You wanted to pay the NFL $1.3 million a year, you can or won't pay your players or staff?
Yeah, you want to pay, you're going to pay the NFL Network $4 billion to play your games over 3 years and get nothing out of it, and you can't even feed your players, you can't even buy equipment and all that.
What happens when a player gets seriously injured? This whole saga is a class action lawsuit waiting to happen. You're fucked. When the force disbanded, players were left stranded without pay. They had to launch a GoFundMe just to get plane tickets
A team had to freaking do a GoFundMe in order to help fund their players to get back.
But this shouldn't be a thing. All that's left are people pointing fingers at each other and a bunch of angry players and coaches. Travell Gaines
and another team followed, so that's 6 teams
the second
now.
in command either fucked off from this sinking ship or was deemed a scapegoat for this failure. Which one isn't known at this time? As to the status of Lee Hutton, no one knows where he is. He's gone AWOL for weeks.
Yep, he doesn't.
Too bad you can't vote out
he doesn't reply to
commissioners in this
anyone
AFL.
at the moment.
Welcome to the league equivalent of a white elephant. Oh, by the way, there are rumors going around that the rights to the AFL were either stolen from the rightful owners or were never
He
paid
might
for
not even
after
have the
agreement.
full rights to revive the
They have fucked
AFL
up
either.
every
Ooh.
single thing you could possibly fuck up. That's amazing. A league that tells Antonio Brown to hold his bag of dicks. The answer to a question
How is
we
Antonio
never
Brown
asked.
more
What if
sane than
Bishop
this?
Sycamore
That's
was upscaled
embarrassing.
to a
Antonio
league?
Brown is out of his
Actual
mind.
Hindenburg self-immolating and falling to the ground in real time. A league of haves and have zero fucks. A schism that's fucked over hundreds of people by refusing to adhere to basic human decency. See, Mr. Hutton, you run a professional league. The term professional implies that you pay people. If you don't have the money, don't run a fucking league. So many innocent bystanders are caught in this mess. The independently owned teams deserve your sympathy. Think the Nashvilles and Orlandos of the world. They properly market their teams, pay and feed their
some of the teams, thankfully, are actually smart, and some of them are also have been around for a long time, so they're actually being more stable.
players and have no major issues to speak of.
I
Their
know
overall
what they're
standing is
doing.
bogged down by the incompetence
More
of
than
the
the
league
people
they're in.
running it.
I feel so bad for Albany. They stepped onto a landmine last year with a cancerous diva. Recovered from it, only to step right on another goddamn landmine. That city just can't win. It's infuriating. The fact that you start a league without the financial capital to do so isn't just brazen and foolish, it's downright irresponsible. We're talking about people's livelihoods here. The AFL's leadership imitated the Pied Piper by leading them off a fucking ledge. Hutton's been an absolute disgrace to the league, the teams that joined, and the fans interested in the product. It's not just the fact that he even considered the equivalent of an MLM scheme. It's that he dug himself into such a hole that he refuses to come out of it. This is grounds for suspension or disbarment from law. If we can't trust you to do the right thing with the league, why the hell should we trust you as an attorney? You've destroyed the professional reputation you spent decades building in what I can only see as a vanity project. Character of a man is revealed when times have gone to shit. And Hutton's actions have more than shown that over the past few weeks. You and I could run a league better than him. We don't have the money to run one and wouldn't do so to begin with. We wouldn't fuck over hundreds of people depending on our backing to survive as athletes and coaches. And the rest of the owners have had enough. After weeks of radio silence, they're overthrowing the supposedly unremovable and inserting Jeff Fisher as the league's commish.
They've kicked out Lee Hutton, so he's no longer the commissioner of the AFL, and they brought Jeff Fisher, who was the former coach of the Titans and Rams, in. And that's been like a few weeks now.
Jeff Fisher. At least he'll show his face to the league. This is not arena football. This is a travesty. Whatever reputation the Arena Football League once had is destroyed and dissipated into ash. A zombie that merely consumes living tissue, drifting aimlessly until it's put out of its misery. Does anyone think they'll finish the season?
No.
Gone, they
If
might
they
actually
will,
have a
I'll be
chance, but
stunned.
It's a steep uphill battle.
There might be
Took them
like
this
one
long to
game
update
that
the first
survived.
website on
Might be
Google
like, I
search
don't know,
results.
two
Future
teams that
schedule can
survive.
finally be seen on it.
They'll have like one
Congratulations,
game
you're
for
no
like
longer out
10
detailed by the.
weeks.
Oh yeah, and as soon as Jeff Fisher comes in, they immediately, and I mean immediately, finally start updating the site regularly and doing, you know, the very basics of running a sport league site. Like
Average
it actually
men's
looks like a
league.
functional
With
site
10
for
teams
once.
in tow, AFL 3.1 hopes to finish what they started. Oh, I forgot to mention. Oregon, coach wants to see you.
Oh
Senior year
yeah, that's right! I think this happened after the video happened. One of the teams folded, so it was another team, but then like sometime later, they came back. So one team died and then came back.
Form in your playbook.
Oh,
You can run a sympathy rodeo at your wake.
This is ridiculous. This is insane.
Well,
Only in America can this shit happen.
What do you have to say about the AFL's return? Oh my god.
That is an absolute train wreck.
Like, do you know any other league like this?
No.
Even the AFF, when they died in 2019, they weren't this bad. At least they made 8 weeks in before they all folded. My goodness. I'm trying to even look up the Wikipedia page. But yeah, Jeff Fisher immediately turned stuff around, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. This has been such a horrendous disaster. I don't know if it's recoverable. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Let's see how many teams are left.
I think, honestly, you should just hit the hard reset button. Renegotiate everything and then be like, alright, let's restart and let's actually have some rights here.
Yep, there's 11 teams right now, and oh my god, I hope this is something that was just thought of recently and they haven't changed it yet. They're planning on doing an expansion of 2 teams next year. No! Don't expand! If anything, you might need to straight up just still contract to get yourself down to like 8 teams or so that are more manageable. I hope this is something that was just planned before.
AFL in the late 1800s only had like 6 teams.
Like, oh my gosh.
Then, but still.
Like, oh.
They started with 6 and we're now headed for 20.
Yep, just like NHL might be getting another team very soon and such.
Yep, we're getting the Tasmanian Devils in a few years.
Oh, I bet Looney Tunes is going to be triggered by that one.
And there's also talk about, oh my god, talk about a Northern Territory team as well.
Yep. So, yeah. So, of course, we're sports fans. I think we can probably safely say how we should run this team. First off, fucking have no more than 8 teams to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and of course, players might not like this, but you gotta keep like the costs low as possible. You're probably not gonna get paid that much. Like, there is a success, like the most successful arena football league right now is the Indoor Football League. That's been around since 2008. Players are paid like $250 a game and stuff. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know if how well it's financially, but that might have to be the baseline to start with. You got to keep your costs down as much as possible.
Like that. Not like zero. Not like you pay something, but like you got to start out.
Yeah.
Like the women's league. People involved in the Australia, they still had part-time jobs.
Yeah. Oh god, that reminds me of the women's WNBA, if you know that.
Oh god.
And there's such Karens about, we want to be paid as much as NBA teams. You are not financially successful as the NBA. You're bailed out by the NBA. If it wasn't for them bailing out, you'd be folded. You can't ask for that kind of money. You're not financially successful enough to do that. And such. I'm trying to look up where it maybe says how much they're paid on it.
If you could have use a similar formula, you could probably get a bit more.
God, I looked up on Wikipedia right now. Each team would have a cap of $700,000, and each player would be paid $1,000 per game. That's probably just way too high. That sounds like tiny compared to like NFL and all them, but that's probably just too high. If the IFL is going $250 per player a game, that's probably got to be like where you're going to be close to and such. So you got to keep your costs down, and you might have to expect losing money for like the first couple years or so. Why the Big Four in America had troubles financially? Like, it took the NFL like 30 years before they finally were successful. For crying out loud. MLB, the same thing and such. Like, you gotta keep your costs low. You have to expect losses and all that. You have to, when you do a network contract, you have to make it sure that you're paid for having your games aired, or some way to get paid. You were getting no money whatsoever, which, thankfully, Jeff Fisher used to be on the NFL Network all the time, so he would probably have a much better brain to potentially try and revive that deal and such. You gotta try and you gotta minimize your costs as much as possible and maximize as much income as possible, because you're not gonna survive otherwise. So, yeah. It's pretty hard to explain stuff to sports fans and all that, apparently.
Yeah.
But hey, we're sports fans, so we know how it's run and such. So, yeah. So, hopefully the AFL will revive. Jeff Fisher hopefully will know what he's doing, but man, that was such a gigantic hole you guys put yourself into that I don't know how you're going to recover from it. It's going to be a miracle. I've seen football team leagues fold. I've never seen it like this spectacularly bad. This is like insane. Oh my gosh. So yeah, on to the next topic, I guess.
Second last one, Russia invading Kharkiv.
Oh man, now we gotta go from something funny to this now. So of course, we're back to the Russo-Ukraine war, as there has been a new change in the last 2 weeks, as Russia, for the first time in 2 years, reinvaded Kharkiv, the Kharkiv region. Now, so far from what I check, it's not like an. I'm sure. Well, Putler says this, so we shouldn't believe it. But he says the goal is not to outright take over the Kharkiv Oblast. Which
that's only because they're having so many losses and making so little progress that there's like.
We're gonna get to those in a little bit. Oh boy, it's gonna be awesome. But yeah, I think it was like 40,000 troops are advancing in the Kharkiv area, which is nowhere near enough to take over Kharkiv. But the stated goal is taking over 10 miles into Kharkiv to form like a buffer area, so they'll stop doing like separatist movement attacks in the Belgorod area. Now, they've advanced, because this was like 2 weeks ago, they actually made their small advances, but compared to the rest of the war, they're actually pretty big advances. Recently, they made 6 miles in 2 separate areas, but that's like a week ago. Nothing's changed now. It's like back to stack moment once again. And from what it sounds like, not only has Ukraine stopped the advance, they might be doing counterattacks soon. So hopefully they'll kick them out once again and make it look like a failure and all that. And oh my god, guys, we've talked about like when they invaded Bakhmut, how many losses they had. When they've done the offensive, like in Donbass near Avdiivka, how many losses that was. Guys, right now, but so far this last few weeks, Russia is losing like 1,300 or more casualties a day.
Yeah.
Like, it's double. Like, guys, it's double. They're doubling the casualties for like nothing. It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. It's a waste of life, waste of resources, and it's kind of cruel to say, but it's hilarious how bad this is. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's now 3-1 in terms of deaths between Russia and Ukraine. Like it's really, really, really bad. Like, they're so stupid how they're fighting. But hey, hopefully that helps Ukraine out when you're not smart in your war effort. Learn the American way, fools. How many times have I got to explain this to you? So yeah, let's watch Binkov's Battlegrounds video on this and see what's happened, although this video is kind of outdated now.
Russia has suddenly taken quite a bit of territory north of Kharkiv, right at the border. But that's not really an offensive to take Kharkiv. This video will explain why not.
Oh yeah, and since I didn't mention up, the rest of the front has been pretty much stable. This was like the only major change in the front in months. It was a quite big change compared to everything else, but that's it. After like a week of advance, it's stabilized at the moment.
We'll also mention some...
Yeah, guys, all the losses they're doing every day now for nothing again. Fucking
reasoning
idiots.
Behind current border ops. But ultimately, this video will go further and explain just what would be needed if Russia wanted to make a proper attempt at taking Kharkiv. So, stay tuned. Hey, what is this?
Sorry, Binkov, no promotion. We want to get straight to the video.
Some weeks now. So Russia taking land north of Kharkiv isn't much of a surprise. What some saw as surprising was A, how few ready-to-react units Ukraine had in the vicinity, and B, how few fortified lines Ukraine had there. The thing is, it doesn't make sense to fortify the lines right along the border. That would put the workers at risk, and it doesn't give much warning for an incoming attack. As a defender, you want a few miles of no man's land to monitor incursions. Ukrainian fortifications seem to be farther inland. Though granted, reports suggest those fortifications are not very elaborate and may not even have enough minefields. Before the attack, Russia had an estimated 31,000 troops in Belgorod region. City of Belgorod and nearby facilities were often a target of Ukrainian attacks. The rest of the border towards Ukraine is less populated by Russian troops. Some 10 to 11,000 are thought to be positioned near the border roughly north of Sumy, with another 8 or so thousand further up north in Bryansk region, watching Ukraine's northern edge. All those are spread over hundreds of miles of border. Even the 30-something thousand troops near Belgorod can't all be engaged in offensive actions. Some are likely positioned further west, meaning east of Sumy. There are probably some in this salient northwest of Kharkiv as well. While it's plausible Russia quickly rushed in additional troops for this push, those figures can't be big, as even a few tens of thousands of additional troops would require weeks of prep time and they would get spotted earlier. So what Russia is doing now, it's using maybe 5 or so regiments worth of its maneuver troops to test out defenses north of Kharkiv. That's maybe up to 10,000 troops, with possibly a few more regiments held back to be sent where needed. Basically half or so of the Belgorod area troops. Those weren't big to begin with, and half seem to be staying put for their usual border
too because of all the casualties.
As we said, those 10 or so thousand troops may grow a bit larger in the coming days, if Russia manages to quickly haul in some extra battalions. Ukraine could not afford to man the entire border right next to Russia, so in essence the border villages were empty, and Ukraine is only now responding after it assessed the scope and direction of Russian incursion. Allegedly, Ukraine has now rushed in elements from at least 4 brigades to the area, that's possibly over 10,000 troops, to help the territorial army troops that were holding those fortified lines. But the issue is this: Russia had those give or take 30,000 troops around Belgorod for a long time. Ukraine was at times making some incursions there, and Russia decided it needed to deploy troops to that area. Ukraine's incursions were small and sporadic, using fewer troops, which means more troops were available for other parts of the front. Russia may have decided it's time to do something with those Belgorod troops. Those were there anyway. And now those seem to have redirected 3 or so of Ukraine's army brigades, drawing those away from other fights, like those in Donbass, perhaps around Chasiv Yar. We will of course see how much can Russia do in Donbass, but this sort of force redirection may complicate matters for Ukraine. If and when Russia indeed attacks across the border near Sumy, that will make the situation even harder. Another reason for Russian ops is mere probing attacks. If Russia ever wanted to move on Kharkiv proper, then probing incursions towards Ukrainian lines would be necessary to try to see where the lines are weakest. But if one expects an offensive towards Kharkiv itself, then these current Russian ops are not really it. Even for mere probing attacks, they're too limited. A much wider front would need to be probed for that, especially west of Kharkiv, not just north and east of Kharkiv as it is now. We'll likely see bigger forces used just for those probing attacks. Which leaves yet another possibility for current attacks, to simply broaden the belt under Russian control around Belgorod. That way fewer Ukrainian artillery pieces might be in range of shelling. Belgorod was shelled sporadically during 23 and 24 in response to various Russian operations. But again, to achieve such a buffer zone, a bigger operation would be needed. Also and going so northwest of Kharkiv and going several miles deep pretty much everywhere. So if that's the goal, then we're seeing first half of such ops, with the second half possibly making this part of the border flare up. But what about the big threat against Kharkiv? If Russia was serious about taking it, just what sort of a force would it even need to just attempt it? Before the war, Kharkiv was a city of 1.4 million people. According to Oleg Sinehubov, head of Kharkiv military administration, that figure plummeted to just 300,000 as the war started in 2022. But many people returned, and by January 2023, he says 1.1 million people were living in the city. There is no data since then, but it's plausible.
I wouldn't be surprised. Oh yeah, guys, I'm sure in a few hours, when the day starts for fighting over there, the Kyiv Independent will probably post their daily casualty figures. One more day of like over 1,000 deaths, Russia will officially lost 500,000 casualties, if the numbers are correct. Like, I'm not kidding, guys. They've doubled the casualties in the last, like, this entire month. It's doubled. Like, Bakhmut doubled it, then Avdiivka doubled it, and now this doubled it. gee, maybe another major offensive, and then you'll go into like 2,000 or 3,000 a day.
That the number remains similar.
That would probably be almost Nazi Germany and the Eastern Front levels in World War II deaths.
Yeah.
Like, that's how... Like, that's like 9/11 a day we're talking about.
Or even crept up a bit higher until 2024.
These numbers are unsustainable.
It's possible that more people have again started leaving since, but there are no reports of mass exodus from Kharkiv yet. So we're still talking about a city with 1 million people in an infrastructure for 1.4 million. Kharkiv was or is Ukraine's second biggest city, and area-wise it covers some 140 square miles. That's comparable to Detroit or Las Vegas. Of course, those two are much more dispersed, with fewer large buildings. Just reaching Kharkiv in the most direct fashion would mean going over 20 miles of territory. To just half encircle it from the north, we're really talking about a 25 by 25 mile area needed for Russia. That's something like 12 times bigger area than what Russia took during April all around Donbass. Of course, that would mean Russia only approached Kharkiv. To take Kharkiv, it needs either to enter it directly and fight house to house, or to encircle it and hold it encircled until defenders run out of supplies.
They're taking
Both
all these
options
casualties
would
and they're taking
require
like
a
very
lot
little
of
bit of
time
territory.
and many,
like,
many
this is just not
troops.
going to happen anytime
Not
soon.
encircling Kharkiv fully means fresh troops and supplies could be brought in. Russia would need both troops operating inside the city and troops protecting the flanks of the salient towards Kharkiv. Encircling Kharkiv would first require many battles around it. To take a much larger piece of territory, it would likely mean taking at least 1,300 square miles of territory, but plausibly more to have a really robust zone around it.
Taking like a couple hundred
To put
thousand
that in
casualties just to even
perspective,
do that.
when Russia was taking Bakhmut, it had to take roughly 100 square mile piece of territory inside the city and around the city to take it. Once it started in earnest at the end of 2022, that battle took 5 months for a city of 70,000 residents. Roughly 16 square
5 months it took to take Bakhmut, and it's so tiny compared to Kharkiv, guys.
miles in area. Chief of the Russian Wagner private army himself said that 20,000 of his troops were killed in the months-long Battle of Bakhmut,
They had
of which
50,000
10,000 were
casualties
prisoners,
in total
which
in
may have been
Bakhmut.
expendable to Wagner. That
All
suggests
that
several
just
more
for
tens of
one
thousands were
insignificant
wounded.
village.
Western analysts put the entire number to 20,000 killed and 60 to 80,000 wounded. Now, that was a much smaller city, right next to Russian lines. Kharkiv is for now still quite away from the front line. On the other hand, Ukraine seems to have a smaller influx of fresh troops now. Russia seems to have better recon capabilities
when Russia's facing
now
this
and
amount of
more
casualties,
precise
it probably ain't
weapons.
gonna really matter overall.
So given all that, what might Russia need to take Kharkiv? First, it might need months to assemble far more troops. That means taking troops from other areas, which means ceasing offensive operations in the rest of Ukraine.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they really want to go at Kharkiv, they're going to have to like take troops out of the other areas. So I mean, they wouldn't be able to do offensive much either. That's what I'm saying, guys. Russia has severe shortages like Ukraine does, and like no one brings this up, and it's so bullshit.
Alternative to that is half a year or a year to get to a point where it enlists and trains hundreds of thousands of additional troops over whatever number Ukraine managed to enlist. Then it might need months to fight its way to Kharkiv and mostly encircle it. That itself might require tens of thousands of casualties, as Kharkiv is much more important for Ukraine than Bakhmut was.
Like if they
Ukraine
seriously
is
tried
likely
this
to throw
Kharkiv thing
everything
and somehow
behind it
succeed,
in
I would
order
not be
to
surprised
protect
with over
it.
200,000 casualties.
Finally,
at
if
the
Russia
rate
wants
people.
to go head
Like,
on
it's
into
gonna be even more
Kharkiv,
bloody
months
than it is
more
right
and
now.
probably hundreds
Which,
of
hey,
thousands of troops
go
might
ahead.
be needed to actually
You
take
make
it,
yourself weaker?
fighting
Be my
house to
guess.
house. Russia had roughly 450,000 troops inside Ukraine in total around December 2023. That may have reached 500,000 by now. To add several 100,000 more just for the Kharkiv operation, that's something far outside the scope of Russian capabilities right now. Russia
honestly don't even have
today,
the
while
capability to
outclassing
support
Ukraine in
450,000 troops
artillery,
right now.
still can't hope to match artillery usage from 2022. It is using far more large guided bombs today, and those could be useful around Kharkiv, but given the size of the front around Kharkiv and size of Kharkiv itself, it would take over a year worth of Russian precision bomb production capacity, all redirected to Kharkiv, just to make a difference. And all that assumes constant superiority for Russia. If it gets bogged down, it might not be months, but a year or years just to encircle Kharkiv.
Yeah,
the approach
that's
to
exactly
Kharkiv
what's going
is
to
mostly
happen.
flat. A lot of farmland.
But let's be
some
honest,
villages and
it's not going to
towns
probably happen
alongside
here because we
roads.
already saw they're already
There's a
stuck
large
6 miles
forest to the
in.
north of Kharkiv, which would likely be fought for every tree at a time. Nowadays, countless precision weapons and drones means it's too dangerous to go across open fields. And despite urban areas and forests,
Trigger word. Remember they've been droning a whole bunch of oil refineries the last month? Which, of course, fuck off America. Let them do it and shut up. And same goes for letting them do missile strikes there, too.
providing natural
that shit from
fortification
the entire
to
beginning
the
of the war,
defender,
and Russia hasn't
going
done
through
anything
such
about it,
areas
so let
may
them
be
just
the
do it.
lesser of two evils. But such progress would be costly and long. There's a further large forest to the west and a lot of smaller forests to the south. Russia would likely need to take all those as sort of okayish natural fortifications to actually encircle Kharkiv. All roads would need
and
to be cut.
become their own dead
And
force like
Russia
in
would
one
need
part
to
of
endure
Japan.
constant Ukrainian counterattacks from 2 or 3 sides. It's plausible Russia would first want to take Kupiansk and go westward to Kharkiv for any sort of encirclement operation. That's thousands of square miles of territory more, and many more casualties, potentially comparable to casualties that a direct assault on the city would require.
That would probably
It's
even be
plausible
worse
that
because
the
it's even
current border
longer.
ops are in a sense shaping operations to affect the Ukrainian rear defenses of the Kupiansk sector, if Russia plans to push to Kupiansk and further westward. But for as long as Ukraine is supplied with arms and ammo from the west,
Until
insufficient
Karen Green has a period meltdown again and blocks it, which is why we need to get her ass and all these racist punks out.
quantities, Russia would need a colossal effort just to encircle Kharkiv, equal to almost the entire effort it put into the war in the last year and a half. And even then it would take more time and more troops to take the city. Fully encircled city the size of Kharkiv could last for months. That's if it would not be well stocked up from before. It could last a year depending on those supply stocks. A vast
They don't have
number
the
of
supplies to
defenders
do it.
would
They don't have
work
enough troops
both
to do
for
it.
and
They already
against
stopped
Ukraine.
6 miles
The city
in.
would be harder to take
like
for
it's
the
just not
Russians,
gonna work.
but also the city would need more food and other supplies. General population will likely largely flee again, making it somewhat easier to supply 100 or 200,000 defenders within the city itself. World War II siege of Leningrad at its worst lasted for a year and a half, during which it was cut off, save for some provisional roads over the frozen lake during 2 winters. That was a much larger area defended with bigger supply stocks. Stalingrad saw a German army trapped, holding out for 2 months inside the city from November 1942. A little over 300,000 troops were surrounded by a few times larger forces. Germans did not manage to stockpile much supplies and airlift aid was fairly small. A much smaller scale example is Mariupol siege in 2022, where several thousand Ukrainian troops held for 3 months, against a few times more numerous enemy. During World War II, Kharkiv itself changed hands a few times. Some of those battles were massive. Second Battle of Kharkiv saw over 700,000 Soviet troops attacking Kharkiv. Germans then counterattacked. After 9 times greater losses, Soviets backed off. In 1943, Soviets liberated Kharkiv for good, after a massive force outnumbered German defenders. But even that took almost 10 times greater casualties.
God, even when the Soviet Union was on the better end, the Soviet casualties, they had up to 255,000 casualties to Germany 26,000.
Yeah.
And that's when Germany was in a horrible spot. They
Those
still
examples
whooped your
were
ass
much
pretty
shorter,
much.
but one ended in attacker's
That's like 10
defeat,
times the
and the other had a
casualties.
massive attacker advantage and
Oh my
seemingly no
goodness.
casualty limit. Today's city assaults may still involve a few 100,000 troops, but the prep work isn't there yet. And we want to stress just how far from current realities of the battlefield all that is. Kharkiv is not in any immediate danger. If Russia does go for it, it will have to organize such a vast operation that it would telegraph it's coming for months in advance.
They would probably need more troops than they already have in Ukraine right now. Like, that's how much.
Yeah.
And then they're going to pretty much all die.
What seems more
And they wouldn't even
plausible
probably make
is
it
that
close.
if Ukraine's defenses keep having to ration ammo and weapons,
funny.
and if Ukraine keeps being low on freshly mobilized troops, that during the
Superior
rest of
firepower
the year
doctrine
the
for the
front
win, as
line might
always.
naturally creep towards Kharkiv. Right now, ammo and weapons seem to be coming, but fresh troops, that may be harder to solve.
That's
But
why
to
Superior
actually go in and encircle
Firepower
the city,
Doctrine W
that's
as
something
always.
Russia does not seem to be planning right now, nor in the coming months. We may see many other fights and Russian gains south in Donbass, and even possibly a functional peace plan signed, before Kharkiv really gets threatened. That's it for this video.
So, yeah, what do you guys say about this new Kharkiv offensive?
Silly.
Yep. It ain't gonna work, but hey, you've doubled your casualties, so please, try it, and then maybe triple it. Maybe you'll have 5,000 a day. Guys, imagine having 2 9/11s almost a day. That's why you shouldn't have bought it in the first place, Pootler, you racist, fascist piece of shit. Alright, so now, on to the final topic.
Nick Fuentes watching gay porn.
Oh, Fuentes.
God, I love this.
Oh, God, Fuentes. What did you do now to make yourself look more like a fool than you already are? So, context?
Gay cat boy.
Oh, jeez, he was watching that stuff again.
Well, we don't know what exactly he saw, but we knew it was gay porn, so...
Alright, Fuentes, let's see how much of a fool you are. Don't you know you're supposed to have your shit off when you're streaming? It's not that hard to do.
Alright, guys, so Nick Fuentes had a bit of an oopsie the other night. He ended his stream. I'm sorry, let me back up. I'm sure most of you know who he is, but for those of you who don't know who he is, he's sort of like an alt-right white supremacist.
He's a Nazi!
I don't say that loosely.
He's a gay catboy Nazi. That's how you
He's probably the most pathetic Nazi you could probably think
He
of.
argues the pro-Hitler side.
And he's friendly with Cameron Green, so double fuck her too.
Of course
It's not
he's
a straw
friendly
man
with
to say
seditious
he's,
Karen
you know,
Green.
this is his position.
Of
right?
course he is.
This Democrats, if you're smart, you need to point this out, so maybe we'll hopefully tank her. But then again, I know you're incompetent bastard.
It is. So anyway, he was doing his stream, ends the stream, and then as soon as it ends, boom, gay porn starts showing. Okay, so this is censored, so that makes it so I can show it. Let's watch, and then we'll discuss more here.
And have a great rest of your evening.
Look at the chat.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Yikes.
He was saying, "Whoa!" in the chat. Wait, turn this shit off. What the fuck? Hacked? What the fuck? Hacked? What the fuck?
End the stream first before you get freaky, people. It's not that hard.
Now, what are the possibilities?
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are... I mean, it's obvious, right?
How do
One of the
so many
possibilities
people
is he
forget
turns
about
off the
this?
stream, then he wants to beat his little meat, and he goes to some gay porn website, starts working on his meat, doesn't realize it's still going, right? It's still streaming.
Yeah, guys, just so you know, too, I've had this, too, when I stream stuff. Just because when you press on to stop streaming, it doesn't necessarily mean it stops. It sometimes takes a while. That's why maybe you should learn to wait, like I always do.
That's certainly a possibility. You know, we saw a similar thing. Remember when Alex Jones was famously trying to show the camera something, and one of his tabs was a porn website that was with a trans porn star? Remember that?
I did not know about this, Alex Jones.
Super masculine, super manly, traditional
yes,
gender roles. Guys,
the
they're the
trans
first ones
porn
to be like,
thing.
hey, shove that pineapple up my ass.
Yeah.
Right? They're the first ones
had,
to be into some kinky, freaky shit.
They did a...
Wait,
over the
banana up your ass? Have you been watching TJ's video again, Alex Jones?
It's not necessarily freaky. I don't know what they were doing in the gay porn, but if you're just gay, that's actually relatively vanilla,
top,
right?
And he was
so far as
clicking
today's
along
standard.
his, turn all the tabs in his iPad thingy, and one of them was that of a trans woman.
Man, you hate these people, yet you're obsessed with watching porn about them. Oh, wait, that's right. Conservatives do that all the time. Why am I not surprised?
Go. But
like, if you like it so much, just stop being transphobic about it and just enjoy it. It's not a big deal.
The super conservative Christian Republicans who get caught trying to blow a dude in a New Jersey Turnpike bathroom, or the evangelical Christian pastors like Ted Haggard, who was caught doing crystal meth and having sex with gay hookers. We don't even need to go through the list. The list is endless, man.
Eventually, Crowder.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, Crowder will at some point.
Right? So, George Santos has a hilarious feud going on with Nick Fuentes. I have no idea why. I don't know the backstory. I don't even really care. But George Santos comes out. Nick Fuentes streamed gay porn last night on his show. Now the Gapers, he's making a play on the Goipers, that's what they call themselves, Fuentes fans. The Gapers are claiming it was a Mossad hack.
Oh, yeah, of course, Israel's fault. Israel's fault.
It's always Israel's fault.
Oh, and guys, I think I mentioned last episode, remember, Fuentes is being used by hacky piece of shit on Twitter and all that as to go after Israel. And he's an anti-Semitic piece of shit. Don't use him if you want to go after Israel. Don't do it.
Is a homo.
Yeah.
And he's got a bunch of clown emojis and a bunch of laughing emojis. I love that these two are fighting. It's adorable to me that they're fighting. Nick Fuentes' supporters are claiming Fuentes was hacked by Jews.
Nice anti-Semitism.
These claims
Let's go.
From the Drama Alert, Twitter.
And Israel fuckers. This is actual anti-Semitism.
Not us criticizing Israel when they genocide the Palestinians.
Not us opposing nuking Rafah City. Which we know there are a bunch of Republican and Zion Nazi politicians who want to nuke Rafah.
Says put out a statement and said the following. Last night, after my stream went offline, my Cozy channel was hijacked by a known hacker purporting to represent IDF Unit 8200. That my team uses to automatically stream the looped pre-show intro lobby of my stream on Cozy. This is why the hacked material, which was streamed, did not appear live on Rumble or in the replay VOD on either Rumble or Cozy. If the material originated from my OBS streaming software like my show does, it would have appeared on both platforms during the live stream and in both VODs. Instead, the hacked material was broadcast only on Cozy and did not appear in a replay VOD on either side because it was broadcast from the web app, which automatically streams a playlist of videos exclusively on Cozy before I begin streaming my show. The hacker exploited a vulnerability in the web app to gain access and create multiple playlists of pornographic videos, which he streamed to my Cozy channel after my stream went offline. He included messages in the title of each playlist offering money to my development team to leak information to him. He also included his Telegram handle in those messages, and in a watermark overlaid on the pornographic material he streamed on the channel. The name of the Telegram account was recently changed to Am Yisrael Chai in Hebrew, but was originally called something else, and is most likely not Israeli intelligence. Okay. There is...
Dude, the Israeli intelligence and the military are too busy wanting to genocide the Palestinians so folk care about you. Like, come on.
There's evidence that this hacker has been involved in similar attacks against other streamers and online communities over the past several years. Since the hack, my development team has investigated the incident and found that Cozy was unaffected, no data was retrieved, and that there was no leak from my team. The hacker targeted a vulnerability in an application used internally to create the automatic lobby. So, there's nothing I love more than dunking on and making fun of Nick Fuentes. I think he's a freaky little twerp. My favorite clip of his, personally, was when he said sex is gay.
Oh my god, I remember that. Oh my god, how sad on you that sex is gay.
But that actually sounds pretty convincing, right? It sounds pretty convincing that he was hacked.
Remember
the ultimate incel.
Nick believes it's gay to be straight.
I love to sit here and tell you guys it was the exact same thing as the Alex Jones situation where he just outed himself as liking trans women. I can't do it. That actually sounds relatively convincing to me that he was hacked. So,
I don't think so.
Now, look, does that mean for sure that he's not closeted in some way, shape, or form?
Of course he is!
Oh, he's a gay cat boy. What do you expect?
Is he even in the closet? This has been years since we've known this. He's out of the closet pretty much now. Come on!
Sexually.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and I don't care. My issue with him is ideologically and politically. But you guys tell me, does that explanation, does that description of what happened, does that sound convincing to you?
No.
Do you think he actually was low-key watching gay porn and beating his little meat?
Yes.
So do you side with George Santos on this?
I don't really want to side with him ever, so...
And it's total bullshit that he wasn't doing that. He says enough weird stuff about sex and gender relations where we don't need to reach, right? So
He's an
there's
incel,
enough,
people.
enough stuff there that's right for attack
Yeah,
anyway.
He's
but
like
I-
the ultimate incel.
That does sound relatively
Yeah, he's the
convincing.
king
in
of the
terms 'cause
incels.
It's such a detailed description of like what went down, what happened, etc. That it's like you definitely didn't make up those 19 different factual points in order to come to this conclusion. It seems actually likely he was hacked. So anyway, hate to rain on everybody's parade there, but I think George Santos is wrong and Nick Fuentes is right in this particular instance.
I'm not convinced
Nick
that he
Fuentes,
was
you are not
hacked.
guilty
I'm going to need a
on the
lot
charge
more evidence than
of
that.
accidentally streaming gay porn.
Because we know how he is. I do believe he would watch it just forget to turn on the stream.
I love y'all very
like I'm still believing that because I know him. We know how he is. So yeah. What do you guys say about that? Him being a little too open about his kinks and all that. Now of course. Now, difference is, Fuentes, we don't care if you watch gay porn or whatever.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. We don't demonize LGBT like you do. You want them all killed, even though you're part of them, which is a major contradiction. So, get fucked, enjoy your shit, and stop demonizing people. And wow, how about that? We did 9 topics, and it was just an hour and 50 minutes. How about that for a quick time, people? All right.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that in the future. Non-videos, we'll do those first and all that, since it's easier and all that. All right, guys. That's going to wrap it up here. So see y'all next time for episode 104.